Welcome to our wonderful session on bringing books to the metaverse. Oh, I was told about the music, yeah. I'm on radio, whatever. Radio CMC. Yes, clearly a memorable day. Okay, we'll just do one quick audience question. Is there anybody in the room that is unhappy that Boris has resigned? Hasn't he resigned?
Yeah, he has.
Well, technically he's on the way out, but nobody unhappy? Okay, I thought that might be the case at the CMC. Right, we're going to talk about something far more interesting than UK politics, which is in a complete mess. Maybe books in the metaverse are equally complicated. So our title is Bringing Books to the Metaverse, or is it the other way around? Or is there a place for books in a digital ecosystem? Hopefully we are going to have an interesting and maybe sort of heated debate. Our idea is, or my idea is, that you can join in at any point. So please don't save your questions to the end. We will discuss things, and if you want to contribute, put your hand up and say, that's not how you see it, or have you thought about this? Please do. Hand up, then wait for the microphone to come, because we need it recorded. The compass points for the discussion, as I see it, are, let's say, on the north-south axis, we have children and a literacy crisis. On the east-west axis, we have physical books and the digital space, including the metaverse. And we will be discussing all points within that ballpark. I would like to introduce our three wonderful speakers, who will also give you a little insight into what they do and what their connection to this subject is. We have Sophie Dean from Bright Little Labs in the middle. We have Alex Price from Macmillan Children's Books, and we have Japhet Asher from Polarity Reversal Limited. Can we begin with you, Alex? Who are you and what do you do?
Thank you, Scylla. I'm Alex Price, and I work at Macmillan Children's Books, and after 20 odd years of working in PR and marketing, I now work alongside the publishing team, where we are exploring new partnerships and 360 approach to publishing. And I work closely with the charities and the literacy charities, and the sort of good for you work that children's publishing can do around the also selling and the business and the other bit that we must do in order to do the good bit.
Okay, thank you. Sophie?
Hi, I'm Sophie. Thanks for having me. I'm the founder and the CEO of a kids media company called Bright Little Labs. We're backed by Warner Bros. Discovery, and we make 360 media with a focus on inclusive role models and 21st century skills. And I'm here because one of the worlds we've created is about Agent Asher, and she's a top secret spy for the Children's Spy Agency. And it exists as a published trilogy, spy series with Walker Books, an immersive experience at Kidzania in London, which is a live experience, apps, a series in development. And so I'm here to focus on how all of those things sort of tie together.
Thank you. Japhet?
Before I introduce myself, I just want to say thank you to John. We had a COVID-hit panel, and John stepped in at the last minute to moderate for us. So it's John Lomas Bullivant, who also has it's his publication day of a book he's been working on with an author for how many years?
Probably 3.
Well, congratulations. Yeah.
I'll show you at the end what it is, so you can all rush out and buy it for your kids.
Shameless.
Yeah, we have no sponsor for the show, so we were spontaneously discussing the idea that you could become sponsors of the show. You would get 10 seconds to say why you're sponsoring it, and then you could donate some money to the Ukrainian sort of like crisis. If anybody thinks they might be interested in doing that, then I will match whatever they do, because I can sponsor it on behalf of my book. One other thing I forgot to say is there are QR codes on your chair. A series of links were put together by our genius producer, Dash, in the corner, and sort of like Japhet. They will then link you through to a number of articles to hopefully give you some brain food on the topics that are related to this, the metaverse, etc. So take them with you or put them on your phone, and then if you can multi-skill, you can read the links while we're having a conversation. If you can't multi-skill, then you can do it on the train back home or on a lunch break or whenever is convenient. Japhet, thank you for
Sure.
support.
So-
Tell us about what you do.
I'm Jaffet Asher. I have a company called Polarity Reversal Limited. My work is primarily around developing IP myself and helping others develop IP, primarily for storytelling across platforms. But over the last few years, I've had a particular focus on doing work with augmented reality, particularly augmented reality with books. And I'm currently involved in a small startup which has had some outside funding to make any textbook have augmented reality capabilities. So, any book you have on your bookshelf, which is interesting and a change of the way that we might think about books.
Okay, we'll talk more about that later and find out exactly what that could mean. So you know who we are. Let's find out who you are. Put your hands up if you stayed up too late last night and you're regretting it. Okay, that's a worry because it means you'll be paying attention to what we're saying. Right, put your hands up if you work in publishing or connected to publishing. Oh, wow, that's quite a lot of people. Surprising. Nice to have you here. Thank you. Put your hands up if you're connected or you think you're in the digital content space. Clearly could be an overlap. Okay, a lot of digital people. Ooh. Anybody working TV? All right, so there's people overlapping. Put your hands up if you didn't put your hand up. Okay. Madam, what is it you do, madam? Me? Yeah. Oh, you're a writer. You're a writer who's not working in TV then? Oh, you're one of it. Okay, fine. All right. Excellent.
Then you are.
Okay, next question. Put your hands up if you've got kids. Okay, a lot of people. Keep your hands up, please, if you've got kids. Hands up still. Right. Keep your hands up if you can explain to your kids what the metaverse is. Ooh, okay, that's quite confident. Okay. We will come on to discussions about what the metaverse is later and various definitions that we've got them. We're going to begin in the world of physical books, and we're going to turn to Alex to get some stats on where physical books are at and in connection to whether the I'm not going to say the so-called the literary crisis and what that actually means for kids and reading. Alex.
Okay. All right, just what everybody needs is some numbers then to get you going this morning. So the children's book market, this is from Nielsen. The children's book market is currently worth £164 million to us. Year to date, the children's print market is up 5% compared to 21, which was in turn up 5% on 2020. It's robust. Print books overall, adults and children's, started 2022 with the strongest sales for a decade, with children's up 23% in volume. So print is here, it's not going away, and it's looking good. In terms of other stats and a bit of digital access stats, in response to the Kidzania comments yesterday, which I think was that 35% of children didn't have tech access when the pandemic happened in Sheffield. That's for Sheffield children. So Teach First in 2020, in March, only 7% of teachers nationally believed that all their pupils would have adequate access to devices for home learning. Ofcom in 2020 noted that 96% of UK households have access to Wi-Fi, 71% access this with a smartphone, and 49% with a laptop or a tablet. The NLT in 2021 said that 47% of DE children have good broadband at home, only 47%. In 2021, Teach First, with a second round of research in the pandemic, found that 37% of parents said they had at least one child with no exclusive access to a device for schoolwork. And I think over the last few days, we've talked a lot about the sort of acceptance that we think that everyone's got an iPad in every room, or there's access, everyone's got their own device, and I find that quite sobering to look at those numbers. And the NLT this year have done a piece of research which says that over 400,000 children have no book of their own, which means that we do have a literacy crisis. There's research that says if you don't own one book, you don't own more. It's not a thing that you do. And we do have conversations at events where children suddenly say, oh, I've got one book, and that they don't realise that there's a world out there to go beyond that. And World Book Day, which has been in existence for over 20 years, we now know that the step of getting your book token in March is a step too far to actually getting into the bookshop to get your book as well. So Macmillan Children's Books launched the Marcus Rashford Book Club last year, and to help address this, and we gifted 215,000 books last year to families via Magic Breakfast and the National Literacy Trust, direct to through the schools and given directly to children in their hands. And it's that immediacy that we need, because we all know that use of libraries is falling away and that the libraries are often not open or not funded. So we have to get to children where they are. Lastly, the NLT this year have also noted that children and young people who are the most engaged with reading and writing in their free time. So it's really significant, the difference between doing it in school and doing it for pleasure. They have significantly better mental well-being and are happier than their peers who are least engaged. So it's important that we find ways to reach them and to engage them, to turn it into a hobby beyond the classroom. And I think that's our challenge.
Okay. A couple of questions. The publishing stats are positive. Is there any particular reason you think that they're going up and they're so healthy? Is there anything connected to the pandemic and COVID that people went to books more? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's true that there is concern about screen time. We all know that, and I think for everybody that screen time went up for all of us exponentially during working at home and learning at home. During the pandemic, the authors who were already well known did better. It was really hard, and it's increasingly hard to launch new voices into the space. So parents and carers who went straight to Amazon, inevitably because lots of the bookshops were closed, were looking for the people they already knew and the books that they didn't have by those authors they already knew. So there's a question about scope and range. What was your next question? Sorry, not quite.
Where the growth was coming, whether it's basically a growth because it fell away, or whether that actually dynamic within the industry in terms of people's engagement with books did go up because we locked people in their rooms, in their houses, and therefore they were looking for different forms of entertainment, and books became something that benefited from that, maybe.
So we were able to see immediately in our daily crisis calls, as I'm sure we all had when the pandemic started, that the supermarkets were calling out for novelty and activity books, for stickers and colouring and everything that would keep children engaged at home. So there's been a real increase in novelty and activity. There's certainly an increase in UK teen, and we think that is Book Talk and a general wider conversation again around teen books. There's a question about whether adults are reading down again into that teen space, like what they did with Twilight, and how much is being bought by those 13 to 19-year-olds and how much is it 30-year-old women who are just enjoying that more teen world. And for little ones, that sense of learning through having a novelty book and the sharing moment and reading together is still really valued. And we know that educationally, a baby, when they look at a book, is surprised when it opens and it's not a box. And so, they turn the page, they pull the flaps, they slide the bits along, that has a developmental and educational impact which is beyond literacy as well. So it's a kind of expanding your brain moment for those little ones, and that won't go away, I don't think.
Okay, we hope not. Last quick question is, you're involved in sort of communications. As an individual, so I may be completely wrong, and I often am, I've not seen a campaign where, within the kids space, should we say, let's focus on the kids industry, basically the publishers have all come together, the major publishers, and there's a big number of them, and said basically to parents, communities, families, reading is good for you, it's healthy, etc. And in terms of the literary crisis that potentially is sort of going on, where should the messages be coming from that basically encourage caregivers and parents to make books part of their children's life, or making them aware that they can get them from libraries for free, that sort of kind of thing? And I'm wondering whether, in terms of the whole issue of the physical book and the benefits that we hopefully believe it has, there is what could be done, should be done, and does the publishing community ever come together at the most senior level, top 10 in the UK, go, guys, we could be doing something about this? And if we divided the budget by 10, it's a whole lot easier to swallow than you doing it on your own, HarperCollins doing it on your own, Egmont, I don't know if it's still there, doing it on their own, etc. And I've not seen that message go out and hit me in the same way that people used to say milk was good for you back in the day. Those kind of public service messages. And I'm assuming we all buy into the fact that that is a good message to send out to the people of Sheffield, that basically give your kid a book, do them a favour type thing. What's going on, or what could go on?
Okay, so I think we all know libraries are in crisis. We don't have time to address that here, but that's a big piece, and they have got a lot of recovery fund money to re-engage with communities, and it'll be interesting to see whether the councils are able to support that. Publishers have done that in the past, and often the laureates help us pull together. I suppose most notably, and a long time ago when Jacqueline Wilson was laureate, there was a book that was published which could be given away in libraries and bookshops, which had the top 150 books that were new. The other thing is about trying to get the new publishing to everybody. So we know that teachers, particularly as gatekeepers, are often aware of the books that they read as children, but they're less conscious of what's coming now. And I think in recent years what's happened is that publishers, we obviously did the Marcus Rashford Book Club separately, but generally we are supporting Book Trust, we're supporting the Reading Agency, we're supporting the National Literacy Trust, and they are better placed to be in the communities doing that. Now, there is a question I think about, could we have a lovely milk every day, go to work on an egg kind of public service? Let's hope with the changes afoot, we might get some of that coming through. But at the moment, I think all publishers feel that we're stronger going through those charities who are more embedded in their local communities. So Book Start runs from Book Trust, and so every baby gets their book at their hearing tests at 9 months. And, you know, that's the start of your journey. You get a book at age 6 through Time to Read, also funded by Book Trust. And people, publishers do excellent deals with the charities to help them give those books out to the children who need them most. So it's not, and also that no one's interested in the publishing brands really, apart from Penguin is the one that people know.
Sure.
But saying Macmillan is doing this is never going to have the impact we want. So I think there's been increasing work via partners to try and get the best impact, rather than us not really knowing how best to serve a community. That's not
Okay. Fine, thank
our
John, can I pick up on this? Because
Yep.
I'd like to just talk a little bit about story trails and what they're doing with libraries, what I'm actually off to do in Blackpool tomorrow. But because I think, we have a tendency to think there's books, and, we've heard the statistics, 75% of global book sales are physical books, etc. And there are kids without books. 10% of UK households have no books. It's incredible. But the Unbox project, which funded a bunch of art stuff across the UK, has funded amongst its things a project called Story Trails, which is centered around libraries in various communities, with 50 different artists creating AR histories of their communities that you can experience as you walk around them. The children's element of it, because it is a bit more of a grown-up project, is within libraries with a goal to use digital tools and digital skills to bring kids back into libraries and engage again with books. So it's a way to create a bridge between the digital world that is perhaps drawing kids away from books to some degree, particularly reluctant readers, particularly boys, and back into libraries and discovering them as a community resource and a place to discover books. So tomorrow, for example, I'm in Blackpool doing a 2-hour session with a large group of kids, showing them a variety of AR books and doing a reading as part of that, and making sure they understand that everything that is happening in the digital environment is coming back to the page and back to the story. And then the libraries are then following up with a whole bunch of digital workshops, introducing digital tools, but always surrounded by books and reading. And I think it's a really interesting initiative, and it suggests that there's, rather than thinking of one as the enemy of the other, the enemy is perhaps too strong a term, but it's on or off digital book, that there are ways for the two to complement and create bridges, story and technology.
You were saying yesterday about the importance of reluctant readers, often boys, not exclusively, using digital as their gateway into reading. And I think that is something that we could consider more broadly.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. We had a number of people here confident to put their hands up and say they knew what the metaverse was. I have no idea, and I certainly couldn't explain it to my children. That's probably because I'm not really interested in it, although I should be. Jaffa, give us your definition of the metaverse, and is it here now? And if it isn't, when is it coming? And then we'll see if other people want to come back and say, actually, that's not how I see it. How would you describe the metaverse?
Well, the metaverse is a state of mind. I think we can start with. I think that's something we can all agree on, right? Because we all know that the metaverse, whatever it turns out to be, is something we're imagining at the moment. And while there are technologies that are interesting, it's not a virtual world. It's not it's not purely about Web3. It's not about the blockchain. It's about all those things. So to me, the metaverse is about everything being painted with data. In the end, each of us, the environments we're in, the things we use, the books we read, everything painted with data that can provide content. The technologies that are driving the metaverse. Sorry, let me finish this.
Does everybody get what that means? Painted with data. Does everybody understand what that's going to mean?
Okay, so if you've got one of these, you've got this little thing here, which is a LiDAR. It scans the room and it can create a map of the physical objects in the space. The camera can recognize already through AI and semantic computing different elements within the room and understand that's a chair, this is a table, that's a guy called John. So increasingly, your devices are aware of the environment that you're in and can either use that for information for you. So I can't remember who John is, but I knew him a while ago. Oh, good, that's his last name. There it is above his head. Or
That would be really handy for me at this conference.
or driving a self-driving car is effectively part of the metaverse because it's using the layer of data that's everywhere. Or this whole room could turn into a game environment because we've mapped it, changed it, and you could move through it in a very different way. So for me, the metaverse is about layers. Things that you don't see that are affecting the way that you interact with the environment, things that you can see alongside the environment, but really locked to the real world. And then the fully immersive, what we currently think of as virtual worlds or virtual experiences, and the ability to move seamlessly between them with your identity as you choose to present it intact. There's a lot of other stuff as well, but I think for me that's the core idea. It's going to take quite a long time for that to come along, so let's be honest about it. We're all saying, oh, we're in the metaverse. Well, it's right now, and the metaverse can be whatever we kind of imagine it to be, and that's kind of nice. Since it started with a phrase in a book, it's good that we're talking about books in the metaverse now.
So, excuse me, Roblox and Fortnite aren't metaverses. They are just...
I think everybody who works in this seriously would agree there's one metaverse. That's the goal.
Right.
I hate the word. I keep using it. We have no choice now. But just, Roblox and Fortnite are virtual worlds, which is their games. They're large-scale game spaces run by game engines where you can participate, see content, have social experiences. And elements of that will be part of a bigger metaverse. But until you can move happily between them and back and bring parts of it back into reality and so on, it's not... it's a game as we understand it. It's just a very, very big, elaborate, open game space.
Okay. Sophie, can we come to you? You've essentially set up your version of the CIA, the Children's Intelligence Agency. Did the Americans come and bother you at all? Have you had any little emails going, what the hell are you doing? Are you being tracked? Exactly. Do you know if you're being tracked by the CIA in America?
I had a few people from them look at me on LinkedIn, and then Google closed down our app. They were like,
oh, really?
Your app is spyware. I'm like, it's not. It's explicitly to teach children how to prevent themselves from being spied or getting their data collected. Like, we are an educational tool.
Was that not just a gift of a press release for your...
you know what? Everyone said that to me, but for me, I was like, my users can't, do their missions and
it should have been front
do their
page news in the Daily Express.
It was so
Americans
annoying.
closed down kids,
And it took me about 3 months. We had to go through so many levels of trying to convince Google that we aren't in a surveillance agency. But they're the only two Russians.
That is fantastic. I didn't know that. So talk us through what it is that you created and what your hope is and what it's giving you in the context, because you've got a physical book, but you've got stuff happening in the digital space. Clearly, it's not the metaverse because that's a way off, but it's part and parcel of this, how a book's working with digital. What have you done and what is it giving you that maybe just the physical book doesn't?
Okay, so in my world is centred around a girl called Agent Asher, who's 11-year-old from London, Wembley, and she's an agent for the Children's Spy Agency, and anybody who's under 16, so none of you can join the spy agency. And for us, or for me, that Children's Spy Agency is a real agency, And it encourages kids to question everything that's going on around them, which is the sort of highest level of digital literacy or critical thinking that. And my mission, the company's mission, is to equip people with critical thinking and critical thinking skills. And so being able to layer digital on top of the book means that we can create a world which exists for children. And so throughout the book, there are sort of QR codes, embedded codes, Morse codes, and they all have different QR or entry points into joining the Children's Spy Agency. And that's not just from the book, that's also from the live experience, it's also from organic search. And because we're able to track, because all of the children come onto our platform and then they can email us, they can play with our games, we can see exactly how our users are interacting with us. So from a creator's point of view, I can make the world like super exciting, like, oh my God, it's real. Like some of our characters have got LinkedIn profiles and corporate websites. We've got a baddie who's basically Mark Zuckerberg, and that, their corporate website's up, and everything that you come across can be validated in the digital world, which is where you'd go to look for it. We can figure out what department is more exciting, the Department of Encryption or the Department of Robotics, by having a chatbot that's just constantly on the website asking questions, and that data helps me write stories and create, good stories. And am I answering too long?
No, keep going. I've got loads more questions. Keep going.
Okay, with a more sort of like CEO hat on, owning the UX of the brand. Does everyone here know what UX is?
So there's some people who don't, so tell us what UX is.
Okay, I'm going to go for a supermarket example. Like in Tesco, the front-end developer is the person that makes everything look nice for you and puts everything on the shelves. It's like the window into the shop. The back-end developer is the person who's like, oh no, we're out of Weetabix, is looking at all of the sort of systems to manage the stock. And the UX designer is focused on what is the experience of a customer who's coming into Tesco's. Let's like pump out the smell of bread, not blood. Bread. I'm like such a nervous public speaker. If you pump out the smell of bread, then people will be so hungry when they come into our store, and when they check out,
It worked for vampires.
Yes. How can we give them a club card, and how can we understand what's really interesting to them and serve them with the most personalised offers? So they're thinking about the user in the supermarket, what's the best ever experience for them. And so with my sort of more commercial hat on, we design all of our brands with sort of the user experience in mind. So from a kid's point of view, we work with Walker Books to publish the books. We work with Warner Brothers for like cartoon stuff. We publish our own games, and we've got Kidzania. And so if we can make sure that for a kid it's seamless between them, because we're looking at the user experience, then the world is better, and we can also send people from one place to the next place, which is commercially useful.
Okay, that's... Congratulations, that sounds fascinating. Just a quick creative question. Somebody spent 3 years developing a fairly big story world. How did you plan all that out? At what point are you just moving backwards and forwards going, oh damn, I need that character now needs a profile, or was it all planned out before you wrote the stories? What was the creative process to get all these bits to join up? Because that's not an easy task, I don't think.
I think we always planned that the world should exist, right? We never break the fourth wall. So even my name as the author is Sophie Dean, and there's a whole section of how to go undercover. And one of the fake names that we use all the time is Sophie Dean. So there's even a backstory to like, why is there a book published?
Do they know you're here, your community?
No one knows if Sophie Dean exists or not, or if it's just a cover.
Okay, right. Do you exist?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I mean, why are we here? I don't know. But I can't remember the question.
The planning of all the creative
yeah.
bits, in terms of, okay, you've got a book and it's a story,
Yeah.
how much was mapped out, how much did you have to map out in terms of the live, the games, etc., the profiles on LinkedIn, before you actually wrote the story, or did you write the story then go, okay, these are all the other bits that need to exist in all the other spaces, and then we'll publish and let the world discover it?
It was quite big at the beginning because we knew that we wanted to make a series, because we think that television is the most sort of equitable way to reach people with a message of, this is for you, like coding's for you. And so there was always that in our thinking, and we used Notion, we used tools to help us make sure that everything is consistent. And then it's relatively easy, like putting up a website doesn't take a minute to add bits along the way. And we employ a UX designer whose job it is too, always look at the loops between them and make sure we're never doing anything inconsistent. And that's something that we've invested in, which is, I think, quite unusual.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Jackie, do you want to say something?
Well, I just want to say, I mean, Sophie, you're kind of being modest. I mean, I know that there's ways that you think about storytelling and about creating those links that you've had in your mind from the get-go and that were clearly part of what you were trying to build. And, you know, I mean, this panel's about the metaverse and books. It seems like, and I'm sure we'll get to this in greater detail as we go, but story across the metaverse, story from books to the metaverse feels very important. And ultimately, it's going to take thinking like the thinking that you've engaged with Agent Asher to make that a coherent kind of thing. Because when things are connecting to the real world or to the physical world around us, finding ways to deal with that weird intangible, is this fiction, is this fact, how does this play, how do I fit into it, everything becomes much more personalized. You know, actually, I was thinking about it yesterday when we heard from Mr. Kidzania. I'm sorry, Ger, right? Yeah. So, it was great, I thought, and said a lot of interesting things. He talked a lot about personalization and things being personal to the reader. And one of the things that's interesting to me about, you know, books on their own is they're always personal. We talked about this yesterday. You bring your own imagination to it, and you see things in a particular way. Once you bring digital tools into that, you can augment it by making it even more of a personal experience to the reader, because either the book changes or the experience expands into their personal space, or through the pathways that you're creating already with what you're doing. And I think those kinds of story skills are going to be critical for these new technologies that are emerging.
But if I may, like the thing that I think is really important is the book, because even if you don't have access to any technology, the book makes complete sense, and we're leaving it down to kids to imagine stuff. And so all of the digital creations complement. It allows you to invite your friends into the agency, but it doesn't change sort of, we're not telling children what it looks like from the book. And I think that's where digital and physical are like great, because I want, you know, kids, their brains light up differently when they're reading to when they're interacting with digital. We were all talking about this yesterday and how it should complement, not like compete with or stop that happening.
Quick question on yours. How much do you signpost the digital within the book? You said the book just makes complete sense, as it should do. Are you relying on natural curiosity?
Yeah.
Or so there's no kind of like, by the way, this person, you can find out more about this person if you go search for him, etc.
No.
Okay.
They're Easter eggs. There's one thing at the end which is sort of in a backwards code, and it says, you know, if you have decoded this, go to this website. But the assumption is that that's quite a low barrier to be able to go to a website.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, you don't need even a phone for it. But generally speaking, it's hidden.
Okay. Alex, the good news, according to Sophie, is this is all relatively easy.
Oh, I'm delighted.
So, as somebody who sits in the publishing space, she's working with Walker Books, etc., what do we not know that makes it a little bit less easy? Because otherwise it'd be happening for an awful lot of books. And what Sophie appears to have created, I'd say, is relatively rare.
Yeah, I think the funding of that is really complicated, and
You can ask where Sophie got her money, but so it is, from your side of it, it's a money thing. Simply
Well, I think naturally with us it would be that the book contract and deal is done, and then the extra world of it would sit within a marketing, publicity, comms budget.
Right.
And so a proportion of that obviously goes to getting the books on the shelves in the bookshops as well. So there's a balance there. And it is unusual, it's not impossible, and obviously we see big spend for David Walliams and for big names that are there, but it is unusual to launch a new product, a new set of novels into the market and have that bang at the start. It does happen. It happens less, I think, than it used to. I think we saw those sort of packaging things, Beast Quest, Rainbow Fairies, in those earlier days. There was there was a sense that you had to launch and go, and you might have 8 books in one go, or they might publish in a more regular scenario. You know, we know that children don't want to wait a year from one to the next, and so the pace of publishing is important. But yeah, it takes that investment. And obviously, like everyone, we do a cost basis of how many copies are we going to sell? Have we got the world rights? Can we sell in translation? Therefore, what is the marketing budget around it? And I think we need to think, Sophie is making me think, that how can we creatively look at what that funding is, but we're going to need third parties to come in. That working together and collaboration is going to be important, I think.
So, I mean, intrigued, I have spent a short while within a publishing company and have heard, you know, the editorial meetings where an editor's going to bring a book to the table. Let's say within sort of Macmillan, and Sophie drops her book in front of sort of Macmillan, and who's the person, do you think, within the publisher who goes, oh my God, can you imagine what this could be? It's a spy network, da-da-da-da-da. What is that, the editor who's going to be bringing that to the table, or are your marketing departments going to be opening that? I'm intrigued. From my experience, I don't know who sat around that offers meeting, you know, who goes, oh, I've got a good idea. And everybody's going to look around them and go, well, okay, how are we going to fund that? Do you know what I mean? In terms of, I don't know where that passion comes from within the publishing house, because there isn't the digital guy, from my experience, sat at the table going, I can see the digital play for this. And everybody's ears prick up and go, my God, it's a genius idea. Yeah, we could so do that. Mm-hmm. Do you think publishers have got the people who see books and story worlds in the way that Sophie does?
So we're very lucky within Macmillan Children's Books that we sit within Pan Macmillan, and there is an overarching digital team who are totally interconnected to our comms team across the marketing and PR. So when the comms team come to the meeting, and all the key people you would imagine around the table, the editor comes. Usually it's like everywhere, you line a few people up before the meeting, don't you? And you have a little conversation beforehand. You make sure that the key people have got a bit of background before they come to the meeting.
Government, you mean, kind of thing.
Well, you want to not walk into that meeting cold. No one wants to do that. That's not how internal pitching works. So, and because like everywhere, it depends on the day, doesn't it? And who's there, and who's had a bad day, and who's had a bad meeting with Asda in the morning. I just use that as an example. I don't mean Asda, but you know, the kind of the other pressures that everybody has.
Pissed off and not interested in anything now.
Yeah, so
by Asda. Yeah.
And then it is also about the zeitgeist at the time, and whether you think you can reach the audience, whether the audience are going to respond, whether there's access, and then what the scope of the marketing budget is going to be, and that does come from how many copies you're going to sell. You know, that inevitable balance of this many books, how can we fund it? And sometimes it tips one way and sometimes it tips another. But everyone's around the table and everyone gets a voice. We're very structured, our meetings. Smiling at Stephanie in the audience behind as well. And we're very good, and we go, and Zoom has taught us that, because you can't all talk over each other, so everyone's putting their hand up, and and gets their voice for their area that they work in, and then we have a discussion.
Okay. Anybody got? Oh, we have a. Can you wait for the mic? Because
My name is Claire. I work for You're talking about the comms team, but do you feel that it's perhaps too late by that time to actually introduce some kind of digital aspect to the book? Because surely that has to come either through the beginning of the licensing, or when you actually take the author on board, or...
Oh, they're right at the start.
Right.
So they're at the table before we've even bought the book. Yeah, and
Right.
I personally, obviously, and I would say this with a comms background, but I think, they should be there from the start. You want to be able to see the end game from the moment you buy the project, and that project might take 2 years or 3 years to come through, but you want that journey of knowledge from the very beginning. Yeah,
And
I
do you
think...
feel that digital experience should come from the author, the licensor, because...
Yeah, for sure, it helps to have an author who is fully immersed in that as well, and you want it to be a journey together. It should be a partnership between the author, and sometimes for us the illustrator, and the book and the publishing journey. But it's like Lloyd's Bank, you're there for the journey. But you do need that sweet spot of the author really understanding their proposition as well, I think. And
Can I add?
Yeah,
to
go.
that? Well, it's just because if we're speaking about the metaverse and it's cross verticals, And so you've got the publisher who's got the publishing interests and the broadcaster and the games people. Like, actually, there's a gap for someone. Everybody is, like, scared. They want all their rights. Like, we'll take them. We don't know what to do with them, but let us have them. And then you need an agent to negotiate, like, no, don't take them. But everybody wants them because they don't want to not have them rather than they know what to do with them. And so I think within the metaverse, there's a space for a new entity whose interest is only to look at the sort of the glue between all of the experiences, whether they're digital or physical. And I think, obviously, I think this, but I think the creator should hold it for as long as they can, because even if they're not that way inclined, like, they'll know the brand best to be able to exploit it. And it's quite a commercial thing. So we've negotiated hard to keep them each time we partner with someone.
Yeah, can I chip in on that? Because
Yeah.
I played this role as the digital person at the table in publishing houses, and it seems to me that there are a few different types of ways that it happens. I mean, first of all, there's the marketing side of it, because publishers honestly don't perceive digital as a source of revenue, particularly. They see it as a cost for promotion. And as long as that's the case, then the things that tend to come along tend to be pretty gimmicky. And we're seeing that already with some metaverse publishing, like the Batman comic that DC have put out, set in the world of Fortnite, where you can scan something so you get a skin in Fortnite. And I suppose that there's some story arc stuff in that, and but it's conceived as a cross promotion effectively. I confess that some of the first augmented reality books that I was involved in felt more like gimmicks because they were separate experiences. And the cost of creating the AR was far greater than the cost of the book. So you were actually effectively selling the book to pay for the app. Publishing is very good at monetizing paper. That's really the business. So decorating paper, making it beautiful, and things that digital tends to be sort of books plus. But the core thing is that when it really works, it works because an author or a creator is central to what's being done, and it's core to the idea. So whether it's Sophie's book, Agent Asher, or my Ghost Keeper's Journal book, where it couldn't exist as an idea if it didn't marry digital and print, and actually that's hopefully the power of it. And you have somebody who's articulate about it and can make the case for it, that doesn't just help within a publisher, but it helps with the sale of it. It helps with the vision of it to other publishers, because any book of that scale, with a large investment in digital or especially AR and 3D models and all of the things that come with that, requires a lot of international publishers and partners to get involved. So you've got a much more complex thing going on as well. So having a really core, strong vision of why this isn't just a gimmick, this is central to the experience, and that has to start at the beginning, and it has to come from somebody who holds a vision. That's why when we talk about the metaverse being a place that will be creator-driven and friendly to creators, I'm a bit dubious about the financial rewards and how that'll work and the infrastructure, but it's an opportunity, and hopefully people will take it.
I'm going to be rather contentious.
Good.
No change there then. So I've worked with new authors for the last 3 years, in an attempt to get them published. And of the authors I've worked with, there's barely one who can talk in the way that you or Sophie do about a 360 digital experience. They're simply not really that interested. What they are interested in is writing a story and creating that story world to be a book. And in terms of this, the creator-driven thing, I'm intrigued as to whether the type of writer that wants to go into fiction, etc., whether they know that part of the way that they think about their worlds, etc., if the books are moving into the metaverse, needs to have this kind of sort of elements, because the ones I'm working with are very happy to think, oh, the publisher's going to do that, or John's going to do that, or a third party's going to do that, because I really can't wrap my head around it. And I'm annoyed that I now have to go on Twitter, because basically I'm not a fan of Twitter, but I now know that my publisher's going to want me to go on Twitter, and they're also going to want me to go on Instagram, and they're also going to go on doing all this stuff, because actually all I want to do, I just want to write a book. And the whole notion, one of the issues I think of, books moving into the digital space, etc., is the people who are creating great fiction in this country and probably all around the world is that they're not naturally digitally interested. Maybe the likes of Dash and the younger people here will be, but if the writers are...
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, honestly, I understand there are individual...
don't
You
agree?
said you wanted to be contentious.
Go on
so-
then. Why don't you agree that authors...
There are authors...
Creative
look,
driven.
not everybody is J.K. Rowling who wants to take control of all the different types of iterations of her story and be out there on social media with all kinds of impacts. Or, somebody like the guy who used to work with Chris Van Allsburg, who really didn't want to have anything to do with anything but his books, illustrating his books, writing his books. Anything beyond that, let other people do it. Make the Polar Express. If it's good, it's bad. It's not my thing. That's a choice. But what I think it's the case, the largest consumers of books in the world are Gen Z consumers. They're the biggest readers, buyers of physical books. They are also the largest users of social media, the largest users of digital media, and there is an overlap there. So I think, it's easy for us to say, well, an author doesn't want to be engaged. So find somebody to work with who is, somebody you trust, and build from there if you want to do that, because your audience will be there for it. And I think that's really the point. If you're a storyteller talking to audiences, you need to think about them, not just your book. My opinion.
I think that
that message doesn't necessarily go out to new authors or aspiring authors. The fact that you've got an organic growth in terms of younger people moving into wanting to writing will bring that digital savviness with them. But there's a large number of people who are writing now who are of a certain age who are basically agnostic towards digital, etc. And yet, within the publishing world, you're going to read a manuscript and you're excited about that manuscript. There will be the conversation in the publishing house that goes, what's their Twitter profile? How many followers do they have on Instagram? Because we need that to promote the book. But there is, at the moment, a default until the new generations move through a completely digital savvy and they're the new authors, where there's this disconnect between the creative story world on print to what the stuff that Sophie does, because she's in a different headspace, I'd say.
But perhaps then, if no one knows what the metaverse is, so we don't know exactly how we're going to use the digital space, perhaps there's just an education to say, and also Web3 is about, as well as the digital layer, it's about decentralization and us owning our data and sort of everything being decentralized and trackable. And so perhaps it's just an education of creators say, I'm keeping it. I don't want to go on Twitter ever, but I'm going to keep it because I want the opportunities as they arise to go into the digital space or to sell it to the right person. You don't have to use it now.
Anybody got an observation or a comment or a question?
While you're thinking, I just, to me, the conversation will happen around the text. Everybody takes ownership now of what they consume. They share it, they change it, and I think it would be. So you either get involved with that, or you say, right, I don't want to. Let's see what happens with this thing I've created. People are perfectly entitled to make that choice. I mean, honestly, if I'm successful at what I'm trying to do with the ability to digitally annotate any physical text, there will be loads of stories spiraling off stories. There will be soundtracks to books. There will be all kinds of stuff that anybody can put on there. So, I think...
I would like to say that surely in the end it's about the story. So you start with a strong and brilliant story that you believe that others will be engaged in and will want to experience. And then from there, you either have it as user-generated extras that exist and create, and you get the promotion on Book Talk. And actually no one's interested in the publisher talking on TikTok. It's not about the corporate brands there. And it is true that the conflation of author, creator, and the book as it's being published has become more important. Sometimes it's not right for an author to be on Twitter, and frankly, it would be better if they weren't. And so it's got to be the right platform for the author as well. We've talked a lot about the digital space, but we're doing publishing for children who are under 13 and under 12, where really we're talking to the parents, the carers, the adults, the aunties and the grandparents who might have a bit more money to buy for those children. And, the story has to stand up and the illustrations have to stand up. And then the world of it comes from there. And it's still about real-life memories, and potentially more so after the pandemic, that going out together and seeing Dear Zoo at London Zoo and having that memory and building that and doing that in the real-life space is as important potentially after the last 2 years than what we're doing in a metaverse digital space as well. But I think the story's got to be at the heart of it, otherwise none of it works.
Yeah, I was not suggesting in any way that it shouldn't be. Alex, how do you think either Macmillan or publishers in general view what Sophie was talking about, the user experience? Because going back to we're in the kids in the younger space, etc., is how does anybody in the publishing have an idea what the user experience is of their book? And are there ways within, what are the barriers to finding out about that? Because that's probably, unless you go out and do a focus group and research, and maybe you can talk about that, whether you do any, the digital does offer that possibility, but how can you learn more? Or are you interested in the user experience? Or is it just basically, well, John, we look at the sales, and if the sales are good, we know there's a good user experience, and if the sales are bad, then basically there was a bad user experience, because that's what it is. Is it that simple?
We get the data of sales out, but then you've got to see that journey continuing. Otherwise, the user experience hasn't been any good, and they've bought the book and they haven't read it, or they've read it and they've not liked it, and they haven't
you know how many
recommended
you've
it.
sold, but you don't know. I mean, one of the interesting things about the Wild Brain guy on the preschool session was he is iterating his series. He said after the first 15 episodes, we're using all of that information to improve episodes 16, 17, 18, 19. We can see when they drop off. I'd love to know the more details. But that user experience on a viewing platform is informing the creation of his content. And I'm intrigued, is there any connection of that kind of scenario where digital content, video is being created? What on earth that is in the publishing space? Because
Well, there's not, I can answer it, because I mean, Kindle already allows you to follow. They follow what publishers.
Are you getting that
can-
information?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know from the Kindle readings, etc., drop-off points, reading all the way through, all that kind of stuff.
And we also know that if you've bought a book in Tesco's, what you've also got in your trolley.
Really?
So we can ask for that sort of details.
Holy
When I worked
crap.
on the Hunger Games, we were able to see if you bought a
Did
copy
we
of
know
the
that?
Hunger Games, it is possible to. They might not give you that for whatever data, but in that instance they did. And so we were able to see the brands that people were buying alongside their copy of the Hunger Games. And so then we were able to look at whether there might be a partnership or a conversation or a way of putting those things together. That information is there. Sometimes the retailers share it, sometimes they don't. It depends.
Slightly different. I'd argue that's consumer profile, not user experience.
Yeah, but to finish your point, I mean, obviously physical books, there's nothing more private than the data around what people read. But there are ways to anonymize that data and get the value of how individuals are responding to stories, much in the way that we're tracking, people are looking on YouTube and seeing where the engagement points are, so on and so forth. There's some issues, but let's not delve too far into that. And, I guess I'll start to sound like a broken record. One of the reasons why I'm exploring the ability to scan pages in anticipation of AR glasses as much as with phones is that we will begin to get that information. We'll see where people are engaging in physical books, because it's one of the, frankly, last mysteries.
And people do tell us, don't they? Every Friday afternoon, there's a moment where somebody's written to say they loved it or they hated it, and they've done that email directly, or they're on Goodreads, or they're on social media. I mean, people want to tell people how they feel about things, about everything, I think.
Possibly too much as well.
So we do know, and then of course we're out there, and the events are important, and the author meeting those children, and we hear those children, and I look after many signing queues for Julia Donaldson, and every single child wants to tell me what their favourite book is and what they like the most and what their favourite. So it's granular to that extent, and it's not sort of maybe as broad. And I would say that once we've got a brand, you get more data and you can grow the brand. And I think our challenge is how we can get new brands to get to that level. We haven't got. We're finding it hard for people to want to discover new names and new stories coming, and how can we move them on from David Walliams, on from Roald Dahl even, and Julia Donaldson. We don't want that to happen at Macmillan, obviously, but we would, we are interested in launching new names, and that sweet spot between publishing new things and building them, that's our challenge, I think, and whether maybe the digital piece is part of that.
Michael D was telling me yesterday about the Warrior Cats game on Roblox and how that's been bringing new readers to the books. So, I guess everything has its purpose.
Japheth, tell us, without giving away all of your... Oh, I beg your pardon, got some questions.
Oh.
There. Sorry.
I don't want to... I'm going to very practical question, guys. Maintenance. So a book is obviously, you print it and you don't have to maintain it in the same way a digital experience would be. And so I'm just wondering, in this new future, what is the longevity of those spaces? I'm really interested to know.
Well, this is a problem that I live with all the time. Because publishers, obviously, the idea that you make something and then you're going to have to continue to pay for it, to sustain it, you know. I mean, in my case, you're doing AR apps, and the main issues are compatibility with new devices and making sure that things continue to work and so on and so forth, and there is a cost to that. And so you have to build that for a period of years into the cost of making the book. And anticipate it, and any license that you make to any market will have to anticipate that. Yeah, I mean, that's true of any digital product, isn't it? So, you know, you need to be careful to think through what that means for you. If you're going to keep investing in the content for the digital side, you better have a plan for that either monetizes or is generated by your community, because you're only selling one book, unless you're selling more and more of them, which is obviously the hope. That's why you're keeping it alive. But it is an issue and a problem, and certainly one that takes publishers by surprise, as do some of the scales of digital budgets. So yeah, if the idea is good enough, hopefully that's no reason not to pursue it.
Okay, we're moving towards the end of the session. Do we have any other? Yes, lady at the front.
Wait for the mic.
Yes, please.
Use my loud voice.
You might scare Sophie with a loud voice.
Hi, thanks. Jelena, Kids Industries. Are there any examples of publishers or other than Agent Asha book experiences where you think they've embedded it from the start? It's an example that's not dear to anyone's heart necessarily, but the way that cartoons these days would have the CP person there from the start saying, add a train, add a red car. Like almost having digital not coming from the marketing team, but coming from a digital experience expert. Do you know, are there any glorious examples?
Your book?
Well, I mean, I've made rather a lot of AR books, and they're all that. You know, and there are other people who've made them, in fairness, but, you know, I don't think AR is the only way that happens. I think there are other examples, but it's about the barrier. It's not really about the lack of interest in it or will in it. It's a financial barrier, as Alex has explained, because of the problems that publishers have with monetizing it. So you have to very deliberately strategize to do it. And as a result, a lot of the things that have been done of that ilk tend to be licenses with big brands. I mean, I've done digital and print books with Jurassic World, with Alien, with Star Wars, with Frozen, with Toy Story, with... God, I'm forgetting a whole ton of them, I'm sure. You know, because there is a profile marquee value, there's already a set of digital assets, and it allows you to create an immersive experience that can coexist with the page very effectively, and also a marketing machine behind it. And, you know, to a degree, and fit into that UX that sort of, in the most global sense of digital, print, film, that ecosystem that Sophie was talking about. And I think it's when those opportunities arise that the really interesting stuff happens. And, you know, I mean, the other thing is that one of the things we did with a Star Wars book that I put out was we had a timer in the book. So pages unlocked as the new Star Wars movie was coming out. So it had a promotional element, but it also had a kind of mystery element. Why is this page got a thing on it that's ticking and has a weird code and combination? So it was gamified as an experience. I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but there are lots of ways to slice that, I guess.
You gave me examples. I'll have it. Thank you.
We are, I'm afraid, out of time. We could definitely go on for more. Unfortunately, we can't. So I would like to say a huge thank you to Japhet, to Sophie, and to Alex. Please continue the debate amongst yourselves with our speakers, etc. Clearly, the metaverse is a long way off, but there is also, I think, movements within the book world for books to move closer to the metaverse and promote it. I have a few things of housekeeping. Next up here, we have UK creativity, talent-driven and world-beating. Whilst on the main stage is going to host commissioner conversations for 6 to 12-year-olds, both of these starting at 11 a.m. Tea and coffee is available on the foyer. Last point is, if you buy my book that publishes today, I can come back in 5 years' time and tell you how the hell we got it into the metaverse. All right?